I'm Hillary Johnson, and welcome to Flashback, where we take a look at local stories from years gone by. Today we travel back to October 26, 2000, where the old Skeena Bridge celebrated its 75th anniversary and was honored as a historic part of the city. Jeremy Dunn takes us back to the beginning with a look at the longest one-lane curved bridge in North America at the time.
The classic sound and look crossing Terrace's old one-lane beauty, the old Skeena Bridge. Although it's now the second crossing across the mighty river, it's still a very important transportation link between the Thornhill-Kitimat side and the Terrace side of the Skeena River. The Ministry of Highways estimates that it still carries 2/3 of the traffic on some days. In the early 1900s, before the bridge was built, this is how people got across the Skeena River. It was slow, but there wasn't much traffic. Then in the early 1920s, construction started on the first fixed crossing, and in 1925 it was completed and opened by the Minister of Lands, Thomas Duff Botello, on July 21st. Bob Cooper's family moved to the Terrace area in 1927, 2 years after the bridge was built. Back then, it was a pretty big deal.
Oh yeah, it was a big bridge, a quarter mile long. Yeah, it was a big bridge.
During the first 10 years with the bridge, the population of Terrace grew and the village became more and more dependent on the crossing. Then in 1936, the floods came.
Pretty hard for people to visualize the height the water was. And this cabin came down completely intact. And it flowed right through the center between the two piers, right in the top of the crown of the flood.
The water actually got so high in 36 that it washed away some of the pilings at the east end, taking 300 feet of decking along with it. For most of that summer, it was quite a chore to get across.
Well, they built a steep ramp down, just, I don't know, it was steep enough that you had to be careful you didn't slide, so it was just for foot passengers and leading horses and things like that.
Back then, all of the roads were gravel, windy, and narrow.
I drove lumber truck from various mills to deliver to the rail siding. And we passed two trucks. They were maybe a little smaller than what you see today, but they were 8-foot wide trucks. They passed pole trucks and buses on the bridge. But we had a lot of fun on the old bridge when you got winding across there with a full load of lumber and some timid person came on the other end. It was quite a lot of fun.
The look of the bridge changed in 1954. The curves were altered when the western end was transformed to allow the train bridge to be built, linking Terrace with a newly created Kitimat. Then in 1961, two-way traffic stopped on the bridge, and that created a brand new problem for Terrace.
When they put the light on, at say around 5 o'clock in the afternoon, traffic would back right up to Kelm Street. So it was getting pretty difficult to handle.
Then, about 15 years ago, the bridge almost burned down.
So they had a huge fire in a log jam one time, and just lucky there was enough wind downriver to hold it somewhat out, but they did have to replace some beams underneath. They were bent from the heat. But the utilities were crossing there too at the time, the telephone and that type of stuff. So it was a pretty important thing to have, but they pretty lost it.
It has an exceptional history, but the longest single-lane curved bridge in North America is in no way antiquated and useless. It is still very much a part of the Terrace Road network today.
It's a pretty skookum old bridge, and I guess it'll be here for another 75 years.
That's what was celebrated this past summer during Riverboat Days, the past, present, and future of the old Skeena Bridge. A monument and plaque were unveiled to commemorate the last 75 years. This year, like then, Terrace area residents were given the chance to walk across the span without traffic, a lot like it was back in 1925. Of course, the cars were allowed back on, a parade of the decades showcasing how automobiles have changed and how they've all seen the old Skeena Bridge. What of the future? How does this bridge fit into what Terrace's road network will look like?
Well, the long-run future of the bridge is that it's going to be there. It's a bridge that's serving a very real need, and through continual maintenance and rehabilitation over the years, we don't see anything beyond that bridge at this point in time in our planning future.
That's a long way from how Ramsey saw the bridge's future when he came to the Northwest.
When I first came here and saw that bridge, Jeremy, I must tell you that I thought, oh boy, there's something that maybe we ought to get at right away. But in fact, drivers in Terrace and newcomers seem to learn it very quickly, and with its one-lane configuration with the sidewalk, I think it's a very, very safe and efficient bridge.
But that doesn't mean there aren't any changes in store. Ramsey says Highways is planning to change the bridge's old Eckie wood deck, one of the characteristics of the bridge that makes it unique, to a metal grate style seen on many other bridges in the area. And while it won't have the same sound and feel as the wood deck, a steel one will be a lot cheaper and lighter.
Well, I guess there's always a little bit of that kind of a trade-off, Jeremy, but we think that keeping the basic structure of the deck or of the bridge itself, that the nostalgia will always be there with that particular bridge.
And while the drive will be a little different, most people are pragmatic when it comes to the bridge. Whether the deck is steel or wood, the important thing is that the bridge will be there, as North America's longest single-lane curved bridge for a long time to come.